G'day and welcome to the Off-Chain Podcast. Don here with you. Our guests today are Miquel Ruiz and Maurits Brinkman, co-founders of Captide, the Gen AI for investment research. Very exciting. Captide empowers investment research teams to unlock the full potential of financial data, accelerate research, and respond to emerging information faster than ever. With all the buzz around Operator and now DeepSeek, we're very keen to speak to founders working in the space and get their take on what this means for product development and building your AI moat as a startup in the space. Great conversation. Let's dive in. Tell us, what is your origin story? How did you guys get interested in AI?
Yep, you go first. I go first. Yeah, so my background story is that I've been always a builder. I've been always very interested in engineering, in building stuff with my own hands, but also in computers. And that's been, I would say, for the last 6-8 years, my day-to-day life, just researching on the newest technologies, the newest things, or then how to apply this information into things I was building, things I was working on. And then, so after finishing my career in engineering and economics, I got involved into a fintech startup, and then I learned all about fintech, all about starting a company. But then I saw this huge opportunity in AI, and I started building my own stuff on top of this, and I was ready to jump and research on this space. So that's quite how I got started in all of this.
Yeah, and then accidentally we met. So I have lived in the Netherlands for a long time, where I was a mathematics student. And so in the last 1.5 years of my study, I moved to the south of the Netherlands, still finishing my master's. And I worked for a semiconductor company called ASML, which is one of the biggest companies of the Netherlands. So there I did I made predictive maintenance software. And I did some coding in uni, but this was the first time that I really saw applications of mathematics and statistics that I could really build myself. And that really opened my eyes. And after I finished my studies, I actually thought why not do this for myself, right? Because the company I worked in was a really, really huge company. And so you produce this software, and you give it away. And that's not a bad thing, because the impact can be significant. But if I'd like to, build software with a small team, have the full upside and also the full downside, if there might be one. And that's why. So we met actually through YC co-founder matching, which we did online, because we both applied with different ideas for a startup. So that's how we met. We start working together. And this is how Captide came to be.
Was it one of your ideas in particular that you decided to pursue, or did you come together and then decide, we want to actually, not pursue what we were doing, but let's do something different together?
Yeah. So it was actually my original idea, but the idea changed a lot since its inception. Because how it came to be, I played with an idea that was the prior iteration of what Captide is now. Because in my last year of studies, I was researching a lot on mean reverting strategies, so hedge fund strategies that use quantitative data to predict time series. It was just time series analysis, right? And there I leveraged a lot of traditional machine learning models, random forest, neural networks, and so on, to utilize this data. But then there was all the qualitative stuff that also impacted the strategy that I could not incorporate into the models. So that's right when OpenAI launched their API. So I started testing a bit with the with the API and trying to process qualitative data into the strategies and into the models. And then I thought, all right, this is a huge opportunity. I started talking with people in the industry. I know that this was going to disrupt how all the information was being processed in investment research. Not only like I even moved away from the quantitative side and applied it in the qualitative side, because that's where the real opportunity of AI was going to be applied on in the beginning. And so that's what I applied for in YC, and then Maurits applied with.
Well, basically what I was doing before, because that's what I knew from software. The only experience I had with finance is that my master's was a specialization in both statistics and computational finance. But I mean, I also saw the huge opportunity of like data processing tasks at scale, because in the quantitative side of trading and finance, a lot of automation is already applied and was already applied like years and years ago. But that's absolutely not the case on the qualitative side of research in finance. So yeah, there are huge open gaps there, and that's where you can be of true value as a startup.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack with what you've just said there. So, firstly, what kind of qualitative data are you talking about? So, people have been using quantitative data, obviously, for trading for a very long time, and even like algorithmic trading for a very long time with quantitative data. Machine learning has helped that as well. How are you incorporating qualitative data? Obviously, don't give away all your secrets, but what kinds of qualitative data are we talking about?
Yeah. So it's mostly right now it's earnings reports and earnings documents, right? So publicly listed companies, they report earnings every quarter in the US. In Europe and other geographies is quite different. Normally either 2 times a year or in other time periods. But in these reports and these documents, you have all the statements, all the company specific information, and all the management narrative around what happened the last quarter and what's the direction for the company moving forward. So if we go into the US, these documents are called 10Ks and 10Qs for annual and quarterly reports. But also you have the presentations, the slides that are given together with the earning calls. So that's management speaking with analysts about just discussing the last quarter. So they present a slide. So they present slides that contain a lot of company-specific metrics, but these slides are highly unstructured. And the same in earning calls. You have to process audio or transcripts of a call that is being held live, right? So mainly it's 10Ks, 10Qs, earning slides, and earning calls. All of this data is highly unstructured, and we help make sense of it. We process everything and make it available in the platform so users can use natural language processing to extract data and extract insights from this sea of information.
Yeah. And it's also, so with unstructured data, we mean like data that's in between the lines of text, right? So it's not like you have very nice tables with over the years. I mean, these tables appear in there, but there are also very important metrics or definitions of metrics and that kind of stuff in between the lines and in between the nodes. And this is all information that's very relevant in investment research. And there were not really tools for equity analysts to properly like extract the data they want from all of these documents at scale and to use them in their own way. So basically, the tools we are building right now, you can see it as taking all of these databases with documents like SEC filings that contain huge amounts of text, in which you basically have to find out the relevant information that's in there for you, because every every equity researcher has their own opinion and their own view on the portfolio of companies they are covering. So they want to basically convert that unstructured stuff, so all of that text with metrics, into a database with a structure that they can actually use, and not by coding, but by using simple tools. And those are the tools we are building.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, or before, even 3 years ago, maybe, how would something like this have been done? It would just have to be people who are trying to read over every report and happen to be highly intelligent and happen to make the necessary connections and understand what each data point means and those kinds of things. Is this what we're talking about? Is that kind of uh, uh, something that actually couldn't have been done before the AI period?
No, it's exactly like that. So you have some kind of some parts of these metrics are available by traditional data providers like Bloomberg, Paxset, and so on. And what they use is something called XBRL. So these documents, these SEC documents, are in a format called XBRL. So some of the metrics have uh, like a tag to be able for these companies to be able to extract and consolidate these metrics. So this is a very complex way to do data extraction, and it involves getting a lot of errors. So in the data extraction part, it's not as robust as using AI. And AI, to be honest, is probably, I would say, a more universal approach to extracting information. But then as an analyst, you would only get access to the numbers, right? So, and you still need to make sense of these numbers. So for example, you have the income statement and you have the different product revenue breakdown of for example, let's say Apple, right? The services part of the business is growing a lot. So you want to know what is the reason of this growth. And you want to, as an analyst, um, think if this growth is going to maintain over time, or if this is something that is just a one-time growth and it's going to be stable. And all of this is only done by reading the textual or the context around these metrics and these numbers. So it was done all manually.
Yeah, that's nuts. So as I think back, in the 90s, for example, as computers started to become, more and more prolific, traditional companies would think, okay, how can I now utilize computers? And then when the web comes about, people are like, okay, now we have to think about web. And then mobile comes about, people think, oh, now we have to think about mobile. And Web3 comes about, and then think, oh, we have to now, how can we squeeze this into this? And then AI comes about, and people think, okay, now how can I use AI? But this seems to me to be something that is maybe AI first, where AI comes about and you think, oh, we can do this now. So it's actually driven by the technology rather than trying to bolt on or squeeze into the technology. How are you thinking about that as, certainly compared to me, younger founders? Is this an AI first, or is this, there's a need in the market and we can meet this with new technology? How are you thinking about actually the utilization of the technology?
Yeah, so I mean, we think that there's a lot of new opportunities that are being created thanks to the technology. So it's not like trying to push AI into things that are not needed in the market, but there's a lot of needs in the market that can be solved with AI. So that's why we see a lot of new companies and a lot of new funders jumping into this AI, you could say, trend. But we see it more as a as a technology that opens a lot of new solutions and a lot of new opportunities, because it allows to do things in all industries that were not able to be done before.
Yeah. So when you went through that, Y Combinator co-founder matching, were you both thinking, or were they thinking you're both trying to look into AI and machine learning and maybe that mathematical quantitative background? These guys could come up with a really great idea together, or the guy's got a really great idea. We should put these guys together and they can actually make it happen. Um, or is this just a factor of everybody's thinking about AI now, and so you put any two people together and they're already thinking about AI?
I would say we started not applying as much, so not relying as much on LLMs as we are now. Because we started, I would say, combining LLMs with traditional methods of data extraction, but we saw the scalability of using LLMs for this data extraction was much greater than what we were doing the other part of the technology. So we just saw and felt that the best way to move forward was building on AI. But we weren't, I would say, LLM first. We were trying to solve this problem of processing unstructured data, and we saw that it can mostly be done with LLM.
I mean, the thing is also that before AI, people already working in this area have already solved some of the major problems. I mean, you can before AI, you can already go to the filings, and from the like the code from which the filings is built up. So this kind of HTML that's called XBRL, you can already extract some stuff. Um, so everything that could be done with data extraction using those kinds of methods, people have already worked for years and years. But so the problems that remain unsolved, now LLMs and AI is here, especially in the data extraction tasks. There, all of the problems that are basically still unsolved, you would look double and say like, are could they now be solved at this moment? And I think that's actually the reason a a lot of startups are applying AI, because there are a lot of open possibilities where stuff that couldn't solve before can now be solved, and the reason why it can be solved is because of this new technology. So yeah, it's
Are
yeah.
there any other ways that AI is changing the way startups are iterating when it comes to building and product development? Obviously, that's a big one where you go, "All right, if we're AI first or if AI we haven't been able to solve it yet, let's check the LLM or let's check a different way of, applying machine learning." What are some other kinds of ways?
So just to understand better the question, other ways of building or iterating on problems that were previously there, I could be applied. I mean, and if like I truly believe that anything that involves software, you can add LLMs to make it better. Because LLM just add a lot of flexibility into your product. So previously you build products on specific use cases and you had everything very close-ended. Right? So if you build, let's say for example, a code editor. So if you are building a code editor, you wanted to do these kind of things that allows people to write code and implement code. And you are focusing on things that are very specific to a use case. But then you add LLMs on top, and then you can start doing things that were not possible before in the same product that you had. For example, you could automate code creation. You could do auto correction of code, and you probably have a lot of more context. But
Yeah, so it's the thing is, um, by just code itself, you need to set all of the rules basically beforehand, right? If this happens, then that. But there are a lot of scenarios where you need much more flexibility. For example, right, if the styling of a document looks like this, then we extract it this way. If the styling looks like that, then we extract it that way. Well, what if you have a million different stylings that a document yet that your editor could have, right? You could actually let an LLM look at this, then decide the kind of extraction and go from there. So you see that in the second situation, you have so much more flexibility than in the first one, because in the first one you need to set up maybe millions of rules yourself, and in the second one you basically hand over the decision making of easier tasks to an LLM. So that's where major differences are made in software right now. But it's also the speed of development, right? So right now we're a team of two. We're actually fundraising at this moment. So we want to expand this team, but right now like the productivity you have as a software team, as a small software team, is incomparable to what such a team could do without AI, because the productivity in software is so much larger, and that's great, and that's huge, and that's also why we are doing what we are doing now, because it's possible.
Yeah, man. So some critics or cynics might say that founders are just jumping on AI because of the hype cycle and because money seems to be going into it. But what we're saying is that it would be foolish to not be adopting AI as much, like as much as you can, as early as you can, and even as fully as you can, not just in your product, but even in the development of your product.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we see that nowadays the opportunities that meet these technology opens are huge. And then we are talking now that the productivity is much higher, then the costs are much lower, then the team that you need in order to ship something is much smaller. So the downside of building something just is reduced and the upside is just huge. So there's a lot of people building on AI, and I think this is going to keep stable, and a lot of these startups are going to succeed because they're tackling problems in a very efficient way and problems that could not be solved before.
It's
Yeah.
so what you said about the progressions of technology, right? So computer, internet, Web3, etc., etc. So there are always these progressions, and it seems weird to have said in the 90s, like, oh, why is this company jumping into software and computers? Like, what why why is everybody acting this crazy? But this is simply like a future without these kinds of progressions is unimaginable, because these progressions will always keep on happening and opening new opportunities. So in our point of view, it's very very smart to be at the cutting edge of all of these latest progressions.
Yeah. What do you think we are in that AI adoption cycle? Obviously, in terms of the hype cycle, that's one thing, but the adoption cycle is another. You mentioned computers. It would be unthinkable to not use computers these days. It would be unthinkable even not to use the internet, or perhaps mobile, depending on the application. Web3 has not really hit what I call mainstream adoption. AI, perhaps even more so than Web3, even though at the same kind of macro level, it's been around much less time. Where do you think we are in the adoption cycle of AI?
I think there's still a lot to go. I think so. Right now, it's obviously very popular in terms of the consumer side. I think everybody knows about it. The hype is there, but also a lot of people are using AI daily. We see this with ChatGPT. Probably is the clearest example. If you ask at least anyone below 30 years old, I would say 80% of them are using ChatGPT almost daily or at least weekly for just writing emails, improving reporting, or just knowledge work. Right. So right now we are seeing that the adoption of AI for knowledge work, so working with data, working with information, is just huge and is expanding very fast. But we also believe that this is going to be the case for all other type of work. So there's a lot of companies right now building or implementing AI in robotics, implementing AI in logistics, implementing AI in a lot of other industries or other tasks that are not so knowledge heavy, that can benefit a lot on applying this AI technology. So even if AI right now is, I would say it's probably in the early majority phase, I still believe that this is going to be much greater or much bigger than what we can imagine right now.
Yeah, and especially we think especially on the backend side. And what we mean with that is, right now you are basically kind of forced to interact with AI. So people are familiar with the chat interfaces, and you ask something and you get back a response, right? But there are a lot of events, and especially in data processing, when, for example, new data comes out and you know that certain users are interested or have particular visions about what they might want to do with this data. And so you can already basically do the work for them before they even ask stuff, or like hand them over process reports where this might be of value for you, um, where all of this stuff is done beforehand, like to serve you by AI without you actually needing to tell the AI what to do, right? So those are things that we're also focusing on. Um, what we think are, for software, the next steps in AI.
Yeah. What other kinds of applications can you think about in terms of, I mean, applications as in, a piece of software that you build. I mean, applications as in how might you use AI in those kinds of ways that you were just talking about there, where you're actually anticipating people's needs or desires or not even something that, so I might not even know that I need a piece of information, but from what I'm just hearing you say, the AI might understand based on my maybe my job or my role or my previous history. They can put it together, um, a piece of information that I might not even understand that I need, but you're saying it could be delivered to me almost predictively. How far away are we from those kinds of applications, and how broad would that be? Like even domestically in our homes, certainly in our workplaces. Financially, obviously, in the finance realm, that sounds incredibly interesting. What are you seeing, what's kind of the timeline to those various aspects of our lives are really being dominated by AI in that predictive kind of sense?
So to be honest, I think the technology is there. So you could build these kind of applications. It's just building them, making them reliable, and putting them out there and people using them. But in terms of timeline, I would say it's more dependent on development and deployment than just improving the foundational models, improving LLMs. I think if you work well with LLMs in your backend, you could build any application that is predictive. And then in terms of use cases, this could be applied anywhere. For example, if you are searching through a website, this website could have AI in the backend to be tailored or to tailor a design or a messaging based on your persona, based on your location, based on different parameters. And it could automatically create a website without the website editor having to create a specific use case for this kind of person. But then if we're talking about like anything, like being able to optimize logistics, being able to um, give output, give outputs in advance in a lot of different scenarios.
I mean, so you already see it, for example, now quite some startups are working on email agents. So they would, in the background, they will keep track of the emails, and based on your interaction with the application, it starts to basically learn which emails you are finding important, which ones you want to respond to. I mean, this is already, so the spam filters, that's AI that's already around for years. But now you have these applications where AI will automatically draft the emails for you, or automatically send emails that don't have that destructive consequences, or that kind of stuff, also, agents for planning. So the agents that automatically schedule your calendar and optimizes your own schedule, that kind of stuff. So that's already going on right now. The thing is, if you work in enterprise software, it's a bit of a different game, because the security and also the general applications implications of this are very different than just a B2C software. So that also takes in more development time of these kinds of applications. But so it's being implemented right now in a lot of startups and a lot of companies. This sort of predictive processing. Uh, yeah, so that's what yeah, that's not future stuff. That's being done right now.
We cannot hear the.
Oh yeah, sorry. So what we're saying is it's just a matter of time then, before this actually happens, or we'd actually start to see these things being rolled out because they're being developed now. But the crucial piece seems to be the data piece. So where are they getting? Where are the agents, the LLMs? Where are these data sets coming from? I note that Captide uses publicly available data sets, like SEC, IR filings, those kinds of things, rather than user-specific data sets. Data is kind of the real fuel behind AI. How are you thinking about this as you're continuing to build Captide? Obviously, the more data you get, the maybe the better results you can get. But is there a threshold where more data becomes too great too great a pool to be able to, make um, profitable intelligence out of, or is the more data the better, and it's just processing power and energy at that stage?
So I would say in terms of developing the models, more data is better than less data. And with transformers, so these kind of models that were built to produce the LLMs that we know of today, this was a very specific case that you could just put more and more data into these models and they could just learn more and more without overfitting the model. So in terms of building the foundational model, so everything that is behind or working and getting in as output these LLMs, more data is best. And we are seeing that now they have been trained on so much data that it's very hard to improve them just with more data because
They're already there.
there's right on the data available in the world. So you need either to produce more data artificially or you need to wait for more data to be processed through internet and so on. But when it comes to our kind of application, so a financial data application, we see that you need to constrain the model or our software to work only with highly accurate, highly relevant data. If you go into ChatGPT and search for financials, it will get it wrong because it has so much information and very dispersed information on financial performance on a lot of different companies that it is unable to pinpoint specific financials.
Gotcha.
It will be clouded. It will search through a lot of different websites that have conflicting information. And it won't even search through the SEC because these filings are just very complex to work with and very lengthy. So that's where we specialize on processing these filings and these documents to be able to produce highly accurate data and information software for investment research.
Are you worried at all about, there's some worry in AI development generally, that is, that if AI is producing more and more content and then being trained on content that it itself is creating, then there'll become this kind of carbon copy or facsimile effect where the intelligence it creates become less quality over time. Are you worried about that, or are you among the people who think the inverse is true? Actually, it'll become more quality data and better intelligence over time.
I mean, so the data that the transformers are trained on, the research labs, they select this data very well, right? So all the data preparation that goes into training these models, the research lab, and I mean there are certain best practices of what data to include, how to fine tune the models, that kind of stuff. All of this basically, you have full control with this. So there's just a lot of experimentation that's happening with training those models. If you look at the new models, for example, now of O3 Mini and DeepSeek, all the data sets that these models are trained on are very, very well prepared, and you can choose to incorporate not all of the newly generated data. Yeah, so there's quite some variety there.
Now you've mentioned DeepSeek. Do you have any particular, speaking of controversial, how do you rate it?
Sorry?
How do you rate
Oh,
DeepSeek?
In my personal experience, I would say that it's lower performant than O1 and O3 from OpenAI. In terms of reasoning, so in terms of being able to trace the output of the LLM, I would say it's better. But the reasoning per se or the output per se, I wouldn't say is better. So it gives you more context on what it is doing, but the output is lower quality. In terms of, let's say, for simpler tasks or more predictive tasks like math and coding, then the differences are not that big. So if you want to use DeepSeek as a cheap alternative to O1 and O3 for a very specific task in your backend code, then that's all right. But I'd still prefer O1 and O3.
And so it's also quite nuanced because it highly depends on the tasks, because it's so these are reasoning models and these are not the same kind of models as chat models. And what's the difference in there is that because these models produce like intermediate tokens, which hopefully will give more reasoning and context to the final answer given to the user. These are models that are better suited for tasks where, for example, you know what kind of result you want to achieve, but you're not exactly sure like how to do it. That's where these kinds of reasoning models are highly performant on. But if you have much simpler tasks where you say, do this for me and do it in this and this and this way, then I mean, a chat model is maybe better performing in most of the situations in those kinds of tasks. So it's just a strategic choice which kind of model you use for which kind of task. And we also only tested it for like our own kinds of use cases. So that's also where where we base our opinion on here.
Yeah, gotcha. In terms of if you can kind of crystal ball the next 6 to 18 months, how do you think, if we could just maybe put those two that you've mentioned side by side, who do you think is going to reiterate the fastest in the reasoning? And is it a factor of, can you just bounce between them as as one progresses further than the other or gets ahead? Can you just bounce over to this one, or do you really have to be invested in one in terms of how you build your stack?
No, the good thing in terms of backend development is that you can switch the model very easily. So the good thing about OpenAI is that you can just simply get the API and just plug the API and change the model very easily. You can do something similar with DeepSeek, but in terms of changing the model is easy. And if both are reasoning models, then the infrastructure you need to build around them is quite similar. But then, like forecasting to the future, I still think that OpenAI models are going to perform better than DeepSeek. DeepSeek is probably, at least in my opinion, it's probably going to play the lower cost or on the open source alternative to OpenAI. But if you have no constraint on building on OpenAI or the cost is worth its better quality, then I'd still think that people will go with OpenAI models.
What do you think that puts like Gemini or Llama or other AI models? Are they just being missed?
So the only The only task where we find Gemini of true usefulness is for image to text tasks. Llama we don't really use. I mean, I've experimented with the Llama models before. I mean, I didn't really see the need to basically deploy those for ourselves. Where for fast development, there are already like the API set up for providers like OpenAI. In the end, there's not that much difference in performance, so that's just like ease of use from our side. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I would say just the ease of use of OpenAI and also its increased reliability and increased performance makes it a better alternative than the other competitors. And it's kind of becoming just like a um, like a commodity. These LLM models, like you could easily switch between LLM models, and the product wouldn't change that much. So the ease of use of OpenAI and also you have the option. So the biggest constraint with OpenAI is that they could train on your data, but if you deploy it in your own environment with Azure, for example, that's not a big problem, right? So if you don't have these big constraints, then there's no big reason not to use OpenAI, and the cost differences or ease of use differences are not that much or not that big.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that perspective. That's really good. I do want to drill down into Captide a little bit. Where are you in the product life cycle of, or the project life cycle, I should even say, of Captide? I'm really keen to, ask about product market fit and especially your go-to-market strategy in light of how is AI changing the game of go-to-market strategy. But maybe firstly, where are you? You mentioned raising a little while ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of product development, we have right now a product that can be solved and can be iterated on top. So we have a functional product that gets all these findings we were talking about and creates data sets and insights based on this. And we are starting trials with big asset managers to iterate in an enterprise environment on this product. So we are still in the early stages of the business, right? We've been developing prior to that the MVP and private beta with individual analysts, and we are now getting this product in hands of big enterprises. And then will come the expansion with the improved version of the product based on these trials and based on the feedbacks and iteration loops um, that we put inside Captide.
All right. And how are you thinking about, and maybe if you're not up to this stage yet, but in terms of a go-to-market strategy for startups, how is AI changing that go-to-market game, or is it? Is it just an assumption that everyone's using AI in the production of their offering, but also in the offering itself, and so it's a level playing field, or how is AI changing the game in terms of go-to-market for startups?
I mean, it changed a lot, I would say. But I would say it's changed like in a bad way. Because now, so everybody is,
So that's really one of the downsides. Yeah.
And it was
automating, everybody's using AI to reach out to new people, to just give a bunch of demos and so on. So everybody just has their inboxes much more cluttered. Um, and getting to people now requires a much more personalized and human approach than before. Right? So we were talking, for example, if we reach out to a big leader in asset management or a portfolio manager, if we look back 2 years, probably we would have like a very long paragraph and with a very formal text, right? But nowadays, the only thing that works is just being personal, like keeping all formalities and going straight with a personalized message to each person. But also, the thing that works best nowadays is just introductions and talking to people face to face, because everybody right now is very used to getting a lot of messages and a lot of messages.
So the more, the more technological advancement, in the business side, the more human we have to pursue in order to actually move forward. That's very interesting. Yeah. How do you think? How do you think agents might be able to help with this in the future? If we can lean back into the technological side of things. Obviously, you mentioned before about helping with, managing your inbox. So if you're getting all of those emails, the inbound emails from startups, an agent might be able to help you sort through the things that might fit your investment thesis and, maybe your priorities or interests and those kinds of things. So that's one way. How else might agents help us? Maybe on the VC side or on the funding side or on the startup side.
I think they will change a lot of processes that we do day to day, but I still think that these processes that require a human touch, so go to market, for example, raising money, you cannot really automate them because you lose your edge if you automate these kinds of processes that require human touch or speaking to other people or convincing other people. We believe agents are going to be everywhere, but if I would say there's a place where probably they won't be as successful, or at least in the long term, I think it's going to be in go to market, fundraising, and these kind of processes that require talking to people.
Yeah, because right now you want agents to be applied in the tasks. So in our field, one of the very nice examples is where you have an investment researcher who basically also has kind of a job that looks like a data engineer, because they handle a lot of financial data uh, in their day-to-day use, but they are not a data engineer. They have their field knowledge is into the companies they have in their portfolio and like the sector they maybe worked prior in before they went into investment research. And so you basically want to give them the tools to do the things they are good at, and not like let them spend time on, for example, data processing tasks. And so that's where agents come in. And then where the human side comes in is all of that background knowledge that someone has that basically, I mean, you partly extract it through the workflows they set up themselves, the investments theses that they set up themselves, but the human knowledge stays there, and you want to buy to get the right tools for them to basically make that part stronger. And that doesn't only apply in this kind of use case, but that also applies in the use case where you have the marketing outreach and that kind of stuff, because you want to empower the human, and that's what the major use case of agents is in right now. That's where the value is. At least that's our proposition of it.
Yeah. Because, for example, you could automate in go to market, you could automate creating the prospect list and drafting summaries of each person you or you want to target, or specifying which market probably is best for you. But then the task that relies on human interaction, it will be hard to automate that, or it will be hard to get optimal results or better results in the long term.
Yeah. To let the machines do what the machines are good at, and get the humans to do what the humans are good at.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's actually really, really good advice for any startup founders, or even maybe students or anybody. Actually, that's just a good human way forward, because I think the the memes that I saw starting to come about when AI really hit the meta were things like, now we were supposed to have computers to do our dishes and, the proverbial kind of boring, mundane tasks, so that we could spend more time making art and, and writing. But what we did was got the computers to do the art and the writing, so we can spend more time on the mundane tasks. And I think that is, I mean, there's actually a bit of beauty in the humanity of the mundane task as well. But where machines can help, I think it's really awesome. Yeah, but get humans to do the things that are meaningfully human. And one of those things is the interhuman interaction, which, like you said, Miguel, I think is that will provide the optimal results actually, because I know already people who are sick of getting obviously AI written
Yeah.
communication, and it's a big turn off, not just in investing, in many aspects of life, but certainly in investing, because it does lack the human warmth, but also it comes across to some maybe comes across as you haven't put in the effort to get to know me or understand what I would like. This is a bad. You might have just asked ChatGPT put this thing together in 5 seconds, and you know, is that the level of attention you're giving into every aspect of your building and founding journey? So, I think that's a really really important thing to note. Tell us, guys, what is your well, let's start here first. What are you most looking forward to about 2025? It could be to do with what you're working on at Captide, could be to do with AI generally, or things happening in the market generally, or in the world generally. And what are you most looking forward to each?
I mean, I think 2025 is going to be the year where we see a lot of startups that have been building during 2023, 2024 come out with real, um, let's say, full-scale products that can be applied in the real world. Because it's what we said, the technology to build a lot of things that we haven't seen yet was there last year, let's say July. And it just takes some time to put all of these together and produce a product or develop a product that is ready for, let's say, full scale use. So I think we're gonna see a lot of advancements or a lot of new things in the application side. In terms of AI, I believe the operator and the reasoning models are gonna probably get better. But I think we're gonna see a slowdown in foundational model development, or at least in quality. We won't see a high like the high pace we've seen for the last 2 years. But that just I may be wrong, but that's just how I feel about it.
It's also we always kind of have a laugh about the fact that there's a huge difference, and this is something we came to know personally. There's a huge difference between having kind of a draft version of an application that you think about that could be really valuable, and actually bringing something that's production ready. Because so we have been testing for quite a while, like since August last year, I would say. And so these are future applications that we want to bring out, that where the gap between a product that works and a product that's production ready, especially for enterprise software, is quite a gap.
Yeah.
So now Miquel says, like, 2025 is the year where the startups will kick off these applications that they've been working on throughout 2023 and 2024. I fully agree with that. I think all of these, like, smarter kind of tasks where AI does the background tasks for you. That's also what's gonna be major this year. Um, yeah, I mean, this is a field that, as we said, like, this is just the start.
Yeah.
Because and that's also how it feels for us. If you see how fast paced this area of software is evolving, every week there's being released a lot of new features, a lot of new stuff by both startups and just larger companies working on this. So it's also a really exciting area to work in, and why we are very passionate about what we're doing.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think back to, maybe one of the reasons that the whole Web3 ecosystem still fails to really hit the meta is because people keep coming back to the kind of infrastructure level or layer, keep building infra, but the kind of rush in AI to the application layer, I think is, like you say, that's how you get it in people's hands. That's how you actually make it useful for most people. And perhaps if AI have realized collectively that there are certainly we want to, in terms of the LLMs, we want to keep iterating and keep improving. But if the kind of the diminishing returns on those iterations mean that the application layer is actually where the real interest is now, then yeah, man, let's build those applications and put them in people's hands and deploy them and get them working. And I hear what you're saying in terms of, especially a finance related deployment at enterprise level has to be very, very optimized, to be trusted and whatnot. But some in the maybe retail, everyday, every person kind of application, there's a lot of opportunity for deployment and iteration. And so, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm looking forward
I
to
mean,
it.
I think as a startup is also, of course, you are the decision maker, right? Like when is it time to polish, and when is it actually time to push something into production,
Sure.
basically as fast as you can. So that's also a very tricky area that you have to be mindful of as a startup. Like sometimes it's kind of a hard decision, and you basically want to go as fast as you can instead of polishing the product before pushing it out. That's also where startups have the advantage over the larger companies. But yeah, those are tricky things indeed.
But also mostly in AI, when you are developing AI applications. So we talked about this earlier, right? That if you put AI into your product, then there's a lot more flexibility, but then there's a lot of more things that could go wrong with this flexibility. So perfecting this application or this integration of AI takes a lot of polishing, because previously you just had two options and you just had to make sure that these two options that you coded work perfectly. Now you have to take into account all the variety of use cases that could happen if you apply AI or LLMs into development.
Yeah, and users will get creative as well and test those boundaries. So, yeah, yeah, I get that. What would you say then is what's your most contrarian view at the moment? If you think most people are kind of looking over here, but you're looking over there, or most people expect things to go a particular way, but you have the minority report. Do you have any contrarian views you can share? Again, it doesn't have to be about AI, but it can be.
Hmm. I mean, so because we are working in the data processing space, we are really big on the fact that you want to do the work for the user. So instead of, I mean, what you see right now is mainly these chat applications, right? And this is very useful for information gathering, but or information processing, and that's also where, I mean, we do both, but we're very big on the data processing side, where we want to do the work for the user before the user has actually started, right? So let's say a user has a certain number of companies in his portfolio, and and a new filing comes out, and based on what the user has told us, or basically has set up in advance, like workflows, investment theses, you can already process new data, new filings as it comes out at that right moment for the user, as you know they wanted to have. And so the user basically hasn't set up anything to let you do that for him. And that's where one of the major visions of Captide is, regarding data processing. And not many people are using that kind of like serving of the user as we do.
Yeah, also, I think we're going to see, at least that's my contrarian view, is that we're going to see a lot of big companies lose market share because of startups that can iterate much quicker, and that create products that just improve a lot the user experience and solve problems that they couldn't solve, right? Because if you go into the workings of a large enterprise, you see that they cannot iterate as quick as fast as a startup. And there's a lot of these new problems that we talked about that are being um, that can be solved right now, and they can only be solved with teams that can iterate very, very fast. So I believe that we're gonna see a lot of new startups that gain a lot of market share from legacy institutions or legacy companies.
Oh yeah, I
But
mean,
also the
keep going.
that it that so what you hear quite often is that people might think we're like really late in the AI cycle, and friends that I talk to say like it's basically too late to start now in AI or AI software, right? Because so many people are already working on this. There are so many open problems, and the fact why we are also raising is that because we have quite some products coming up that are very differentiating, at least in our opinion, on the AI products that are in research investment out right now and financial processing. That that require some development, but have a very different point of view on data processing tasks.
Yeah, I mean, you see, even at the LLM level, the week that DeepSeek kind of launched or announced, they'd already been in the news for a couple of months, but when they really kind of hit the news cycle, they caused so much disruption in the US market. Like I think it was the biggest dollar value dip of any company ever in the history. And that's one company on 1 week. And so you imagine a bunch of companies coming out doing similar kinds of agile things. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, yeah, the whole system is ripe for disruption for sure. And
Yeah.
you guys are gonna be part of that. That's pretty exciting too.
Yeah, that's exciting.
So if people want to find out more about or hear more from you too, or find more about Captide, where can they find you online?
So they can go to our website. That's www.captide. So that's CAPTIDE.co. So that's where we have, let's say, everything. And from there, you can go to our LinkedIn page. It's also called Captide, and you can find it easily. And also, people can now start trying out the application. They can request a free trial and jump in and just play around and see what they can extract, what data they can process with Captide. And just, yeah, they can also reach out to us directly via LinkedIn.
Yeah, and also the fact, like, what we always find quite, frustrating with enterprise software is that if you go to the website of a company, then you first have to request a sales call, and then if they have extracted everything from you, then they give you access to the platform. With Captide, that's not the case. You can just sign up, get your free trial, try out a bunch of stuff, and then get into contact with us if you indeed see the value of this. So try out whatever you want.
I mean, all the best with your fundraising, with the rollout. I'm looking forward to seeing how 2025 does go for you. It'd be great to have you on later in the year as well to hear how you've gone and the feedback you're getting, and again, how that go to market has progressed for you. All the best.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for
Thanks,
having
you.
us.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Off Chain. We love bringing you great guests like Miquel and Maurits. We hope you've inspired you to think more about artificial intelligence, about being a builder, how you might think about the future of technology and be a part of building the future with technology. As always, please like, subscribe, or better yet, share this episode with a friend, especially if you found it helpful. Help us spread the word and join us again next week for another exciting episode of Off Chain. Till then, take care.